Really? You should tweet that. I would absolutely tag them on that.
Yes.
Yeah. You just never know what.
It's taking place at 7:18.
I think the president announced the deputy
Oh, Margo.
would be there.
Bishop United and Friends of it's taking place at the Convention Center on Northwest Ave, which is the corner of West Temple and South Temple.
It actually has Wi-Fi, so you can connect it and you can get it straight from your phone or tablet or something. Yeah, you got the Wi-Fi too. Yeah, show it. This is
That's what she does.
what is it? Is that real Zoom or like? It's all 6 times, 16 times optical and then additional digital, but they're all optical. And then I went to half of that, but I mean, that's really great. And that's now it's not.
I've got other money that
It's a nighttime full fix, K610, for not March. Second highest rated in its class. 610.
I'm absolutely going to think I need to do some fix because I love my card.
Well, this one, that one is
Well, I took it out because I got some.
Exactly.
Didn't know tweet the page.
Thanksgiving, But I got a good set of you want to go to the newspaper? They're mine, one of my guys. This is pretty good. I just finished.
Bishop Curry, you want to say thank you.
Don't waste your film, it's not for me. Okay, ready? Yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome. Not much has happened around here today, which is why we're all kind of sitting here. What we will be doing this afternoon is Bishop Catherine will be saying a few words, and then Bishop Curry will be saying a few words, and then we'll be taking questions. There's a handheld that will be going around. This afternoon, Michael Bruce Curry was elected the 27th presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. You get the 27th on the 27th, okay? Yeah, you like that. Okay. He was confirmed by the House of Bishops. The House of Deputies elected him. The House of Bishops elected him. House of Deputies confirmed him, and so he is now officially presiding bishop-elect. Congratulations. Our presiding bishop, Catherine Jefford Shorey, is going to be saying a few words, and we start with her. Thank you, Bishop Catherine.
It's a great honor and privilege to be able to introduce Michael Curry to you. He's a good friend. He and I came into the House of Bishops in the same year. We're in the same class of bishops. And that's been a remarkable gift to be good friends over 15 years. I think it's the first time that presiding bishops from the same class have been elected. I know that it is also a new development that for the first time a presiding bishop has been elected on the first ballot. It was a major mandate from the House of Bishops, and I think it was echoed in the House of Deputies. Bishop Curry will come into office in November at a time when the church very much needs his gifts and his concerns. And I am just immensely grateful and frankly tickled. So welcome. Thank you. God bless you.
Well, Bishop Catherine and I are in the same class of bishops. We started out together and have continued, and my affection and respect for her is great, profound, deep, and long. It really is. And I'm just very thankful for her long sustained, faithful, courageous, and wise leadership and stewardship of our church. And I just thank you. Thank God for you. Really do. And I am really very, very thankful, honored, and blessed. I've been blessed to be the bishop of the Diocese of North Carolina for 15 years and love that diocese and our people, and am blessed to be presiding bishop-elect, and just look forward to serving and working for the cause of the Jesus movement in the world, to help this become a transformed world that I like to say looks more like God's dream and less like our nightmare. And so that's what energizes me. That's what I believe in, and that we can really continue and build on the good work that's really been done in Bishop Catherine's tenure, that will build, each one builds on the other. That's how the Spirit works. And so we build on what has been done and go the next step. And so I look forward to that. Everybody knows I believe I really do take evangelism seriously and discipleship and witness, both witness through personal service and witness through social advocacy to the gospel principles that we hold. I think those three things are critical. I think they're needed in this time, and I just think the Episcopal Church has something to offer in the public square. I like to say we have I think, a way of looking at the gospel that is grounded in the love of God that we've known in Jesus, and that makes a difference. So I'm glad and thankful to the House of Bishops, the House of Deputies. I think they were both happy houses today. I think they really were, and it was just wonderful and a blessing all around. I probably should just introduce my family. Would that be good? We did mention that. Introduce my family. They're sitting in the front row, so you can't actually see them, but my wife Sharon and Margot Acom, Margot has been my assistant for almost the 15 years I've been bishop. We've been joined at the hip a long time, and my wife Sharon and I have been married even longer. Even longer. We've been joined in the hip a long time. Yeah, we stand up, turn around so they can see you. Just go in. It's all right. There's Sharon and Margot right next to her. And then Josie Robbins. And let me tell you about Josie. When I was a young boy and my mama died when we were kids, and my sister and I, Josie Robbins was one of the women in our church community, along with my grandma and others, who came in and helped raise us. Well, I really do believe in the community of the church because I've been raised by it. And anyway, that's to Josie and my nephew Austin Elliott, and then our youngest daughter Elizabeth, and my baby sister, who actually is retired from teaching, but she's still younger than I am in spite of it all, Sharon Curry Elliott.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. First question, over here. David Crabtree, please identify yourself and where you're from.
David Crabtree from the Diocese of North Carolina and WRAL-TV. In full disclosure, I need to mention, before I ask the question, I had the great privilege of being ordained deacon, permanent deacon by Bishop Curry 11 years ago. So first, congratulations, Bishop.
Thank you, David.
We are all very proud and humbled. Thank you. You are going to take the helm of this magnificent family, as dysfunctional as it may be on given times, on November 1st. Your predecessor brought a unique voice to this role. You too bring a different and unique voice. At a time the country has faced nightmares, particularly in this year. As you step into this role and you look at the landscape of racism and poverty and income disparity, and the list goes on and on, how do you want to lead this church to begin or to continue answering these very difficult questions and issues in a way that maybe 9 years from this date, we look back and say, change really did happen, particularly with some issues we had not experienced before? Thank you.
Well, I think there are a number of things. For one, I think it probably is fair to say that time will tell, and some of this will evolve over time. But there's some good public initiatives and some public works that are already going on by this church, often through our Office of Public Policy, Government Office. We are involved in efforts and work that seeks to address issues of racism, that seeks to address issues of poverty, and a number of issues and concerns. I suspect that over time, we will find ourselves seeking to be a reconciling voice and agent in the public square in a variety of ways, seeking to be a conversation partner with those who are really trying to address critical problems, especially issues of poverty, especially the impact of the cluster of racial issues that surround us as a nation. But to be a positive and proactive voice in that public square and joining with others who are trying to be that. I think that's going to be one of the ways that we'll continue what's already begun, but even take it further. The truth is, if you look just at Charleston, the reality was it was the voice of the Christian community that really did change the narrative, from one that could have degenerated into a negative and hurtful to one that was a narrative of forgiveness and of trying to find a different way. I think that's one of the roles that the religious community, and in particular Christian communities, can play, is to find where is the positive way forward, to deal with the problems that we've got, but to find that positive way forward. You know, I really do believe, and I believe profoundly that Dr. King was right, that we were put here to create the beloved community, that we have been put here by the same God and creator of all of us. And the truth is, if we all come from the same source, right, we all got the same parental source. Now, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a preacher, but last time I checked, if you got the same parental source, that means you related to everybody who has that same parental source. The truth is, we are brothers and sisters of each other. And the hard work, and this is one of the things that our religious tradition, our Christian tradition really does stress, the hard work is to figure out how we live as a beloved community, as the human family of God, and not just the family squabbling, but as the human family of God, and find ways to do that in practical and tangible ways. And I think that's where the church, Christians, and other people of faith and goodwill can join hands together and find ways to do that. So I would hope that we will continue that and move forward, but the specifics of what that will look like, time will tell.
Thank you. Marjorie, did you have a question? Marjorie Cortez,
Oh, I'm sorry.
did you have a question?
I thought the diocese asked first
Okay.
among themselves, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Are you next?
I wasn't actually, I wasn't prepared to ask a question.
Okay, fine. Okay, over here.
Hi, Hannah Wilder from the Diocese of San Diego, and we're a border diocese, and so you spoke a little to it right now, but what do you think about how the Episcopal Church can involve more Latinos in leadership in the coming 9 years?
I think that's going to be critical. I can say that that's one of the things we've worked on in North Carolina, and it has taken time. For us, I've been bishop there for 15 years, and we are now at the point where Latino people from the Latino and Hispanic community are now taking leadership positions in the life of the diocese, and we're now seeing vocations to the ordained diaconate and the priesthood. That has happened over time from relationships that have been built in congregations and communities of faith, where now vocations to ordination, whether priesthood or diaconate, are beginning to emerge. Young people are beginning to emerge who are going to college and that kind of thing as possibilities. And then some of the adults who are in the congregations are beginning to emerge in diocesan leadership. And some of that has happened because we've been very involved in the Latino Coalition in North Carolina. And our involvement with that and our church's involvement with that has helped to develop leadership. And that leadership has been both in society in terms of advocating in society, but also in the church. And so now several of our Latino congregations have now evolved and developed to the point where there are vestries and lay leaderships working in tandem with clergy. And it takes time to get there. It takes time to get there. Now, how that will play out on the church-wide, again, I'm not even on the job till November 1st, but.
Yeah, Joe Toma from Orlando. And first of all, Nelson Pinder sends his regards.
Oh, my buddy Nelson.
And we
Yeah.
really enjoyed your trip down there, your preaching trip in December of 2002.
I remember.
Where there was the balm in Gilead, as I recall.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Yeah.
So you're known as a preacher's preacher. Is this, as you're taking office in this capacity, going to diminish your sharing that gift with our dioceses?
I would hope not. In fact, I would hope that it would increase it. I really do. I really do hope. I do love to preach, but I also believe that the preaching and teaching of God's word does actually make a difference, and that it can ennoble life and lift us up and can lift the church up. I mean, you know one of the stories in Ezekiel, the Valley of Dry Bones, in Ezekiel 37. I mean, that's pretty much about preaching. Now, it has more to do, but basically, we're a valley of dry bones, and Ezekiel called down the word of the Lord. And do y'all know the story? And the bones started to shake, rattle, and roll, and they started moving, and then the Lord told him, now I want you to call down the four winds, breathe the breath of God on the bones. And between the preaching and the Spirit coming down, the bones came to life. Well, the truth is that is what preaching does. And so I hope to continue the preaching ministry, but to do other things as well, but to continue that as a way of encouraging the church to move forward.
Thank you, Neva. Jeff McDonald here with the Living Church. I have a two-part question. They're kind of unrelated, but I want to get both my questions in. One, I wonder if, Bishop, you could tell us what it means to you and when you think about the significance of being the first African-American bishop of this church. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And also, because it's history-making and perhaps you've been reflective on it, the other question is, as people are getting to know you and wanting to know, most people in the church won't know you as well as others, but I wonder, would you describe yourself as an evangelical? Is that a term you use?
It'd be interesting to see what terms get used about me. I'll wait and see. Yeah, your first question, what was the first question? What was the first question?
First question was about your thoughts on the significance of being first African American.
Well, I think the election of Bishop Catherine as the first woman to serve as our presiding bishop and primate, I was there. I was one of the bishops there, and I remember just realizing, I mean, it was an experience of the Holy Spirit for real. I was in the room, and I'm here to tell you, it really was. And today I had that same feeling. And I think that's a sign of our church growing more deeply in the Spirit of God and in the movement of God's Spirit in our world. You remember it was on the day of Pentecost when the Spirit came down and a group of Palestinian Jewish disciples began to speak in languages that were not their own, and peoples of many nations and different kinds and stripes were able to hear the good news of God and Jesus. And it is that Pentecost, I mean, don't have anybody say, I'm praying for some Pentecostal Episcopalians. But what I really mean by that, let me tell you what I mean by that before I get in trouble. This is just the first day. What I mean but by Pentecostal Episcopalian, I mean people whose lives are really living in the Spirit of God, the Spirit of God's love, the Spirit of God's embrace that reflects Jesus. And when that happens, we find ourselves growing, as I say, more in the direction of God's dream. I think Bishop Catherine's election was a sign of the church growing more in the direction of God's dream, including and embracing the fullness of all of our ministries. And my election is a reflection of that same thing. That's exciting. And that's a combination of God and us working together. And that's a church that's willing to grow and be all that God dreams for it to be. Thank you.
And are you an evangelical?
Well, you could probably say that Michael Curry is a follower of Jesus. That's what I am.
AP over here. Can you have a microphone over here, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Brady McCombs, Associated Press. How do you plan to maintain or maybe even grow church membership at a time when Americans are not affiliating as much with certain or particular religious organizations?
That's a great question, and all the churches are facing that. I really do think that part of, some of this is already beginning to happen. We're in a time where the church, and I'll speak for the Episcopal Church, but I think it probably applies for others, that the church that has historically been more established is finding that we need, the gospel hasn't changed, Jesus is still the same, but that we do need to learn and discover new ways, many of which may be very old and ancient actually, of carrying out and sharing that good news of Jesus. I'll tell you a story. I was in a Starbucks. This was about 7 or 8 years ago. People in North Carolina heard me tell this, but I was in a Starbucks standing in line, and I had collar on. I was on my way to Dawson House, and a guy turned around, and we struck up a conversation. Turned out he was a Mennonite pastor who had been deployed by the Mennonites to start a street ministry, a street church there in downtown Raleigh. And we got to talking, and needless to say, we ended up sitting down and having coffee and talking for a while. And he said something to me that I've said over and over again and would say again. And I think this is symptomatic or a sign of the way we must be church in a new way in this time. He said, you know, in this time, in this kind of day where the church is not the automatic establishment, if you will, and people don't automatically come to it, he said, in this day, in this time, the church can no longer wait for its congregation to come to it. The church must go where the congregation is and there share the gospel and the good news of Jesus. I think that change of directionality, if you will, on the part of the church, church-wide, will have impact for our evangelism and for our reaching people who are not automatically coming to our doors. And it's a challenging time. It's an exciting time, but the church has been here. Read the Acts of the Apostles. It's in the Bible. We've done it before, and we can do it again.
Fiscal news service, Pat?
First of all, congratulations.
Oh,
Mr. Curry. I'm
thank
so
you.
thrilled. So happy. It was a great day for me. I just want to know, what do you want the average person in the pew to know about you? Maybe somebody that hasn't read about you or doesn't know a lot. What would you say to them? What do you want them to know?
I'm a really nice guy. I mean,
Besides that.
Beside that? Oh, okay. Well, you know, I mean, I'm really serious. I was serious with you when I said I'm a follower of Jesus. And I'm not a perfect one, but I want to be one of his disciples. And I really do believe that the way of Jesus, the way of God's love that we see in Jesus, is a way to life. Life that sets us free and life that can move us to places we would not go on our own. And I hope if they know anything, Michael Curry's not perfect. I'm not. You know, I've been on earth long enough to know I'm not perfect. Now, you get to a certain age, you start to get real with yourself. And so, you know, I'm not perfect, you know, but neither were the first disciples of Jesus either, so we're in good company. But just to know that Michael Curry really does strive to follow in the way of Jesus and to reflect his love and compassion and his justice and his goodness in my life, and I pray in the life of the church. So they can write that on my tombstone. He followed Jesus.
George Conger, you had a question? Use the microphone, please.
George Conger, Church of England newspaper, Anglican Ink. Bishop Curry, do you have any concrete plans for reconciling the disparate wings of the Episcopal Church that some may feel estranged across the spectrum of church traditions?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see a way of being respectful to all and bringing people together in your term?
George, let me tell you, rather than me saying concrete plans, because I don't. Like I said, I'm only on the job, and I'm not even on the job till November 1st. So there will be time for that to evolve and develop. But let me tell you what I do believe in terms of, and what I've done in North Carolina, is to try to, the people there know that I have said consistently that Michael Curry really does believe that when Jesus quoted the prophets and said, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all people," that he really meant that. And that's not easy to always do, but we must strive to be that. Now, how that will play out on a church-wide level, I won't speculate yet. But I can tell you we've worked hard at doing that in the Diocese of North Carolina, being a place, I believe, where liberal and traditional people, I say to folk, if you follow Jesus, you're good with me. Come on, let's go. And we can disagree on a whole lot. But if we love the Lord Jesus and try to follow his way and his way of love, ultimately that's the thing that matters. And we will deal with the things we disagree about. But if we deal with each other in love and charity, we'll find a way forward. We will create space for all of us. No, better yet, the Spirit of God will create space for all of us. So how that will play out specifically in time will tell. But right now, I can tell you the spirit that Michael Curry has worked at in North Carolina would be the same spirit that I would work at it as the presiding bishop. Thanks, George.
Hi, Mary Ann Patterson from the University of South School of Theology.
Oh, good for you.
Congratulations,
Okay.
sir. With parish needs changing and educational formational options for priests expanding, what does the future of theological education look like to you in terms of focus, residential versus regional formation and evaluation?
Well, I'm not an expert on theological education, but I am a bishop who sends people to seminary and prepares people to be ordained deacons and ordained priests. And I can tell you that the landscape of theological education and theological training for various ministries, whether those are lay or ordained, is varied. And I think it's going to be varied. I think the days of monochrome educational realities is over in any educational institution. And so, for example, in North Carolina, I can speak firsthand. In North Carolina, we have a mix. For example, in the those who are going toward priesthood, we still have, I think the majority of our people still go to a seminary, but they don't all go through a 3-year residential seminary. Sometimes there are a variety of configurations. A number of them are at Episcopal seminaries or at other seminaries that have Anglican study programs. And we've also got some programs for formation where we're using some of the creative programs like you have at the School of Theology. I'll give you a good example. One of the things that I've thought as a diocesan bishop that's really important is that we really do need our priest in particular now as much as possible to be as bivocational as possible, or at least have the capacity to earn a living in a variety of ways. And I do ask when I do those initial interviews, tell me how you would support yourself financially if the church institution is not able to give you a living, as they used to say. Now, I don't expect them to always have a clear answer, but I'm looking for the creativity, the possibility for that. And one of the things we've realized, for example, I can think of someone who's a clinical psychologist, and I think she would be a wonderful priest and all of that. Well, if I want her to be bivocational, why would I get her to give up her practice, go to a seminary for 3 years, and make her dependent on the church? That's self-defeating. And so what we have done is to create a spiritual formation program for them that includes mentorship and actual work on the spiritual life and disciplines, and then used the program at School of Theology where they go for 3 weeks, I think, in January and then 3 weeks in June, which is a serious program. That person gets to continue her clinical psychology practice, and yet is getting both the academic and the spiritual formation that you want for a priest. All that kind of variety and diversity the variety is going to become the new norm. In fact, it already is. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, and I think that's a reality that we'll live with, and I think it can be exciting. Thanks.
Bishop Curry, congratulations on your selection. I'm Robert Gerke with the Salt Lake Tribune. I wanted to ask, yesterday there was a significant Supreme Court decision dealing with marriage of same-sex couples. Later in the week, the House of Deputies will consider some changes to the policies of the church regarding that issue. How do you approach that particular issue, and how would you like to see the church approach that issue going forward? Of same-sex marriage and how it approaches that issue.
Well, yesterday on the Supreme Court decision, the presiding bishop offered a wonderful statement, which I concur with and support wholeheartedly. That I know that the affirmation of true love is not the language in legal jurisprudence, but that is what the Supreme Court did, affirmed the authenticity of love. And that, we're in the business of love. And actually there's a hymn that says, where true love is found, God himself is there. I believe that. So that's there in terms of the Supreme Court and the civil world. In terms of the church, we're in the process of working that out. What form that will take at the end of this convention, we'll know when we get there. But the committees are working on that. I mean, even as we speak, they're having hearings tonight on the work of the marriage task force, and we're working at it. Because, the reality is that now for us, the issues are marriage. How do we make marriage fulsome and wholesome for all? Not gay marriage or heterosexual marriage, just marriage. And how do we make marriage a context where life is ennobled and lifted up? And how do we help our society live into that? I think those are critical pastoral concerns. And so I think we're going to find ourselves turning to that once we get liturgy and all that kind of stuff worked. I think we'll head there. But we'll know what it's going to look like when the convention finishes it. And we are really in the middle of it right now, and we'll know by the end of the week.
Presiding Bishop, David Virtue, Virtue Online.
Which one?
Will you attempt...
Do you want Presiding Bishop or the elect?
No, you, sir.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm willing to let her answer if you want. If you want. I mean,
you're the man.
Okay.
Will you attempt to, in any way, end the massive property litigation that's cost the Episcopal Church some $40 million to date? And my second question is, will you attempt in any way to heal the breach between you and the Global South that regard themselves in impaired and broken communion with the Episcopal Church?
Yeah, I can tell you that as a bishop, I am supportive of our presiding bishop and the policies of our church, and I continue that. And I couldn't comment specifically on what's going on because I don't know all those details, but I support our presiding bishop and our leadership in the work that we've done. I can also tell you that I am committed to the work of reconciliation. I think that is part of our gospel mandate. And so I have friends in the Global South, and many parts of the Global South represent the land of my ancestors. And so, I will be an agent and instrument of God's reconciliation in any way that I can that will lead to true reconciliation. And so, I'll do my best.
I'm Dan Webster from the Diocese of Maryland. You spent 12, everybody's looking forward, what are you going to do, what are you going to do? I'd like you to tell us what you may have reflected on as you've gotten to this day of anything in the past, whether it was at St. James Lafayette Square or whatever, that you think has prepared you for the new ministry you're about to go into.
You know, I was in the Diocese of Maryland when I was elected bishop in 2000 and had been the rector of St. James Church there. And part of what we did in my time there, and it was real work, was St. James was founded in 1824. It's a historic African-American congregation. I think it's the third oldest of the African-American congregations in the Episcopal Church. Located in Center City, Baltimore, St. James is located in the Western District where that young man was incarcerated and eventually died. Anyway, long and short of it, St. James is located, it draws its people from all over, but located in a desperately poor, high crime area. One of the things we spent a lot of time doing in most of my ministry there was focusing on children. And focusing on children and young people, both after-school programs, summer programs, beefed up Sunday school. I mean, our Sunday school was not just Sunday school. It was bringing kids together where they got tutoring and they learned about the Bible and Jesus. In fact, it got so to the point where the kids sometimes knew the answer to the questions you were going to ask. You'd ask a question, and one of the kids, I remember one time, raised his hand and said, well, it's either Jesus or Martin Luther King, one or the other. And that for me, that was our way of really reaching into the community so that the church and community would become one. And one of the things we worked at was what you could almost call social integration. This was a predominantly African-American congregation in pretty much all African-American area. And bringing those two worlds together. I mean, this was a congregation where the superintendent of schools went there, and the leading political figures in that city went there. And they grew to a point where they could sit next to somebody who didn't have a job. See, that's the beloved community stuff I'm talking about. And that's, we worked at it. It's not easy work, but you can do it. And I really do believe the gospel can help us to come together around that. And we worked at it at St. James. We're working at it in the Diocese of North Carolina. I mean, some years ago, I told the diocese, I said, I have a dream that one day the face of the Diocese of North Carolina will look like the face of North Carolina in all its variety. Then we'll be truly Catholic. Truly Catholic in our doctrine, to be sure, but truly Catholic as a universal people, that beloved community. I actually got that dream for the Episcopal Church. I think we're on the way. I think we're on the way. But that did kind of start for me at St. James, when I really had to figure out how do you bring differing people, who all may be the same ethnic group, but who are profoundly different in social background and world experience. And that community can be formed. And so I'd hope to do it more.
Thank you. Last question, Garland.
Garland Pollard, Southwest Florida. Maybe this will dovetail on this. African American churches are a strong tradition in the Episcopal Church, but there's still a little niche piece. What do you see as a larger piece with that? We get a lot of people now from in our diocese from the Caribbean and those by sort of osmosis. We don't try to attract them. But yet also we lost St. Paul's College, the historically black college, 2 years ago. So what do you see as that whole thing of trying to bring those people back to the church?
I think it's going to take some work. I know that the various ethnic desks, ethnic ministries at the church-wide staff are involved in some of that work, both in Native communities, Asian communities, Latino, African American, and other communities. I think that's going to be important to be intentional about it. We just had Angela Eiffel was in North Carolina with an initiative, New Visions, that really is using methods of coaching and mentoring between congregations to help us strengthen struggling African American congregations, or black congregations, because they can be different variety, but struggling black congregations by linking them with other congregations that have had a good and strong experience and good, strong lay leadership and clergy, bringing them together with some structured design so that one can support the other. That kind of mentoring, I mean, that's very practical. So we just had the conference at St. Augustine's University just a couple of weeks ago. And we had all of the black churches in the Diocese of North Carolina were present. And we have, churches in the large cities, but we have little bitty churches in the small towns. And so bringing them together was actually a remarkable time. But this work will go on for some years. But it's that kind of intensive work that happens on a diocesan level that will have to happen more and more. And I know that our ethnic desk are working at that in a variety of contexts. We'll do more of that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bishop-elect Curry. Thank you, Presiding Bishop Catherine Jefferts-Schori. That's all of our questions. Thank you very much. For those of you who are interested, we will be having an afternoon briefing at 6:30 like we normally do. So thank you to both, and thank you.
What do we do?